Everyday people working 9 to 5, saving up that money, trying to survive, investing in the future, trying to be wise, we're gonna be money heroes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nik Johnson, host of Everyday Money Heroes, and I've reached early retirement. I'm here to provide information on how to obtain financial independence and inspire you through sharing stories of everyday people who are turning knowledge into freedom.
That hustle, always reaching for the sky, we're gonna be money heroes, never gonna shy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Money Heroes. My name is Nik Johnson. Here we provide information and inspiration to people of all ages to take control of their financial journey. And today we have a very special guest. We have Becca. Hello, Becca.
Hey Nick, thanks for having
Hey,
me on.
I'm happy to have you here. A little bit about Becca. Becca is a money coach and founder of Money Beyond Math, where she has helped over 400 people take control of their finances. Her passion for financial education started when she, like so many others, graduated with not a penny worth of financial education, but plenty of student loans. Now she teaches what she never learned in school: budgets, debt repayment, saving and investing, skills like negotiating, and a money mindset. So those are all great things we need to have. We are excited to have Becca here, and let's go ahead and get into this conversation. So Becca, first thing I have to wonder is that you went to college. What did you major in? I'm just curious.
Yes, this might feel out of the blue, but I was a music education major of all things. Yeah.
Nice. No, I wanted to be a music teacher.
Oh,
So
really?
yes, I was in the band, middle school, high school.
Hmm.
My primary instrument was trumpet, but I could still play the baritone, anything else that was treble clef. And I played a little bit of
Yes.
drums. And so I wanted to go, and my music teacher had such a profound impact on me. Doc, well, his name is Ernest White. Shouts out to him. Um, and that was honestly the first place where I really felt like I belonged. And so that just really, you know how it is being in middle school and high school. So I really was happy with music. So that is an honorable profession. Did you ever transition over into that area?
Yes, yeah. I did end up teaching for a few years,
Okay, great.
about 3 years,
Hmm.
and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But personal finance, I was just like learning a little bit in the evenings, weekends, and soon I was like, I still want to be a teacher. I just want to
Hmm.
teach money.
Different topic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that is no problem. That's awesome. Okay, so we know that you had that education degree. Now you transition, you're still being a teacher, but you're out here teaching, these skills that unfortunately many of us don't have at all. And so you've helped over 400 people take control of their finances. And so I have to ask you, Becca, what is the most common money mistake people make, and how can they start turning that thing around today?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've helped like 400 people through my coaching, so I've seen it all.
Okay.
And so I would say one of the like most common um mistakes that I see is just being unaware or unintentional with your money. I think a lot of
Mhm.
mistakes fall under that.
Mhm.
But when you don't know where your money's going, it is hard to feel good about what the outcome is.
Mm. Yeah. Not being intentional with your money. And I think oftentimes we have to have, in my experience, we have to have a value system. And so that way we can be intentional because we know what's important to us to spend our money on and what we don't really care about much. I know in my personal life, I care about experiences with my family. So that covers travel. So we do a lot of spend. So we focus on traveling. So whenever we're budgeting, we make sure that we're allocating the appropriate amount of money towards that. Some people prefer, a really nice place to live, that's downtown where they don't have to walk. So really that intentionality is extremely important.
Yes, exactly. Getting to know what is important to you, like you said, because otherwise all these things could seem attractive, but it's really hard to afford all the things, like you said, the downtown apartment, still traveling, like dinners out, like they all sound great, but you have to
Mhm.
know which is the most important to you because usually we can pick one or two to afford, but not all of them.
Yeah, that's a good point, Beck. I remember when me and my wife we got our first home, we went through a first time home buyers program. And part of the reason why we did that is that back then we learned about PMI. I didn't know what
Mhm.
PMI was. And they're like, oh, I was like, it's like extra insurance I gotta pay. I'm like, what's it all about? And they said, hey, if you go through this program, uh, we will give you, you won't have to pay PMI. And so they had it set up where you wouldn't have to. And so part of this exercise with this first time home buyers program is that they gave you, I'll say 30 paper clips. And they say, hey, here's 30 paper clips. And they gave everything a value in paper clips. They said, okay, here's your 30 paper clips. They said, okay, big house, 5 paper clips. Close to entertainment, 8 paper clips. Um, I mean, great schools, 3 paper clips. So literally it required us to figure out, okay, what do we care about? And just like you said, you can maybe get 2 or 3 of those things, but you can't get them all. There is there's rare air of people who, regardless, who doesn't have to worry about the price of anything anywhere. So for those people who fall outside of that rare air, we kind of have to
Yeah,
choose, make decisions.
exactly. Wow, I love that paperclip idea. I'm like such a visual learner, so that
Mhm.
would have like really just seeing it in front of you like this represents your money. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, that was probably one of the first like kind of actual, I guess, coaching sessions that I really had about money. And I mean, I
Mhm.
was 24, maybe around that time frame. And so
Yeah.
I was good with money, but it's a lot of the infrastructure or the kind of specifics behind
Mhm.
stuff. I knew I needed to save and spend less than I made, but like kind of other tactical things I didn't really know about. So that was really beneficial.
Yes.
And so we talk about, knowing what we are spending our money on. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes people kind of get confused between budgeting and tracking,
Mhm.
because it's extremely important. Because some people are like, oh, I don't want to budget because that's almost like a money diet. I don't want that. And so I get that portion, but also even if you're not budgeting, you need to track because at least because you have to know where your money's going to. Just like you said, there's that intentionality that we need to have. So, what thoughts do you have to the individuals that you work with or family and friends? They say, hey, you know what? I don't like budgeting. Do I have to track? Can I do um, both of them, but what is realistic as far as when it comes to, tracking money, or you feel as though it's realistic as wrong of budgeting around your money?
Yeah. Yeah, tracking is super important. I like to sometimes tell people to instead of calling it your budget, it's your fact finder. And
Okay.
so yeah, tracking is the most important part of that.
Mhm,
I help people find the simplest solution that they can do over and over and over again.
mhm,
Tracking your budget, even 1 month is beneficial, but it really becomes beneficial when it's 2 months, 3 months, a year.
mhm,
So finding something that's sustainable. And so I have like a handful of different tracking types
okay.
that I think like kind of fit different personalities. Like there's the people that love the spreadsheet. I fall into that category. And
Okay.
so writing down every expense, totally fine.
Mhm,
There's some people that just need to know like, did I stay within this number? And so I have those people put a post-it note in their wallet and just add up how much they spent in the week.
oh wow. Okay.
It doesn't need to say where it went as long as it was under this certain amount that you've given yourself. So finding the like tracking method that works for you is super important.
Yeah, it's almost like when people talk about working out, they're like, hey, what's the best workout for me? I constantly hear people say the one you'll do.
The one that you will do. Yes,
Yeah, you have
absolutely.
to be consistent because oftentimes if something's too rigid, or people won't do it. I mean, it's just hard. That's why
Hmm.
people talk about dieting or just slightly modifying what you're eating. Is sometimes it's better than just going this very strict diet.
Yes.
So we should also think about maybe is it similar to a financial diet? I don't know, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are staying consistent because we know that it is a marathon and not a sprint. So we
Mhm.
want to make sure that we're just kind of doing those daily things. So that's great. Now,
Absolutely.
Becca, you shared that you graduated with plenty of student loans. And so when you graduated with those student loans, you may have had some additional debt on top of that. But what kind of advice do you feel you could give someone who's feeling overwhelmed as far as, okay, I have these student loans, or I have, maybe this collection, or I have this default. What advice would you give someone who's like, okay, how can I get from up under this burden?
Yes. Oh my goodness. That was me. I
Okay.
felt incredibly overwhelmed. I graduated with $50,000 of student debts,
Hmm.
trying to be a teacher just outside of New York City. So it was like
Oh,
these
wow.
pieces are not really fitting together.
Mm,
And it felt really overwhelming.
okay.
But a few things really, really helped. First is changing the mindset around debt.
Hmm.
I think debt comes with a lot of negative connotations, but
Hmm.
honestly, debt is a tool. Like my
Okay.
student loans helped me get the education I needed to go into the career I thought I wanted to go into.
Hmm.
Granted, I did pivot out like we talked about, but it was those student loans that set me up for the career.
Hmm.
And so thinking of it like as a tool rather than this like giant burden,
Hmm.
that instantly made it more approachable.
Yeah. Okay.
After that, it was really, really focusing on just like small wins. Luckily, student loans at least are broken up by semester, or at least the ones I had are broken up by semester. So I could pick a semester that I had the least amount of student loans and be like, okay, instead of this $50,000 loan that feels impossible, this
Hmm.
one semester was $4,000. How do I get that knocked out?
Yeah. It's a great point I want to piggyback on to say that debt is a tool. Now, granted, debt is a four-letter word. I understand that, right? But at the same time, it can be beneficial. Now, some people have different thoughts around good debt and bad debt.
Mhm.
And so I would say that I align with that there is good debt and bad debt because
Mhm.
I have some rental properties, and some of those rental properties still have mortgages on them.
Yeah.
It cash flows. I'm building equity. That is
Mhm.
debt is a tool for me to acquire those rentals, and it's good debt, But at the
Yes.
same time, we have debt like credit card debt, and not, but that credit card debt for like things that we didn't need, like say for instance, purchasing, shoes that we didn't need, or purses, or taking trips that we didn't really have to go on. That, in my opinion, would be considered bad debt. So, what are your thoughts, Beck, around the good debt, bad debt kind of philosophy?
Yeah, definitely. I see the good debt, bad debt argument and like I agree with it mostly. I definitely also think there's like nuances there that
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we could get into of like you might have credit card debt that helped you put food on the table or helped like sometimes people put their business expenses on credit card debt.
Okay.
And so there's definitely nuances there, but
Mm-hmm.
generally when we can invest or take out debts that will help us grow, that's
Mm-hmm.
usually some good debt. And then
Right.
debt that's just going to end up charging us more, that's usually bad debt. So yeah, I
Mm.
am definitely right there with you.
Okay, I got you. So, Becca, one of the things that whenever I'm talking to someone about their personal finances, I ask them about their mindset. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, there's these limiting beliefs that people have about money that, I can never get it right. I don't, you know, I don't make enough, or I've got too much debt. So, when it comes to things like those limiting beliefs, do you have any tips that you give people that you work with, as far as like how can they shift their thinking to I can't to I can, so they can start to focus on financial literacy, financial independence, and ultimately going toward wealth?
Yes. This is definitely something I work with my coaching clients a bunch on because I think like all the habits and changes that I'm suggesting, they really like come after the mindset change. So the mindset change really is the foundation for change. And
Mm,
so the biggest tip I have kind of like twofold is one, you have to be aware of what's going on. Often these like money beliefs are ones that we picked up in childhood and they're so ingrained in us that we don't even think them like um very obviously. It's not like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I'm bad at money. That's not a thought we usually um recognize having, but we
Mhm.
might believe that. So
Right.
first is like seeing what's going on and like taking time, whether it's journaling, just talking it out with a friend. I like to like honestly meditate thinking about money, like whatever it takes to get to know what's going on.
Mhm.
That's definitely step one.
Okay.
Step two is not trying to change too fast. If you find, you know what, I do believe I am bad at money, it's going to be really hard to suddenly believe I'm great with money. And
Okay.
so finding something in between is really helpful. And then proving to yourself that that can be true. So, like, I'm
Mhm.
okay with money, or I can learn about money. That feels more realistic for someone who's starting from, I'm bad with money. And
Mhm.
then once you're there, then we can try to shift to, I'm great with money, actually.
Mhm.
So, kind of like similar to breaking down the debt into small goals, it's like, let's just change your mindset a little bit. And then from there, we can change it a little bit more.
Okay. So we're just looking at kind of iterative change where it's like, okay, understanding that, we're not going to be able to do everything in one day. It's almost akin to, and I guess maybe I'm on this fitness kick because I'm trying to lose some weight, but it's almost like, okay, if I am in the current state that I am, and it took me, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years to get there, understanding that it will take a relative amount of time for me to undo what I did. And so just that I won't be able to automatically flip the light switch and know that all of a sudden, if I feel so I have this limiting belief about money, all of a sudden I'll go here. And what things can we do to change that mindset? Like you said, hey, can we negotiate on a delinquency that we have that might be on our credit? Can we negotiate a better salary on our job? What things can we do to go ahead and give us that proof of concept that, what, we can do better, which is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
we One thing I noticed also, Becca, that you talk about negotiating.
mhm,
Um, Negotiating is something is a skill, definitely.
mhm.
Some people are really good at it, and some people don't even try. I'm probably somewhere in the middle because my wife is really great. Well, she'll go to like my wife can go to a retail store and negotiate something. And I don't know how she can. I don't know how she can do that. And so, oftentimes, one of the biggest negotiating things that individuals will do is around like their compensation at a job. So do you have any insights as far as, what individuals could do to give themselves some leverage when it comes to, say, negotiating around additional salary around their jobs?
Yes. Yeah, it's super important because um, we can cut back up to a certain extent, but there is a point at which like being frugal and cutting expenses out hits a
Hmm.
limit,
Right.
whereas income feels to some extent unlimited. So we really want to push that side as much as possible. So that's kind of the why behind negotiating. And I start there because I was one of those people that felt very uncomfortable negotiating. And so
Mm.
giving myself a reason to negotiate was an important starting point.
Okay.
And then honestly, like I love hearing that your wife's negotiating at retail stores because
Yeah.
sometimes that's my tip is like try it in lower stakes situations first,
Hmm.
situations where it doesn't actually matter if the answer is
Okay.
like no and they look at you funny for even asking.
Ah, that's a good
Whether
point.
that's asking for an upgrade at a hotel or for a flight.
Hmm.
Asking for $1 off of your coffee, like these small things that like build that skill of asking
Hmm.
and don't actually impact the grander picture. Therefore, there's less pressure.
Yeah, that's a good point, Becca. One other thing I've started to do when it comes to negotiation, and it's non-threatening and almost non-confrontational. So I was listening to a podcast one time, and the guy was like, "Hey, um, whenever you're going someplace to a hotel, email the general manager and say, hey, you know what? I'm going there. I'm excited to go, and It'd be nice to get an upgrade. And so I'm like part of a loyalty programs for many of these hotel
Mhm.
chains. And so what I'll do is that I'll email them on the front end and I'll say, hey, you know what? Because you can pretty, easily find the general manager's email address. I'll say, hey,
Yeah.
here's my confirmation number and my member ID of the loyalty program. Say, hey, looking forward to going there. I know that, part of my perks is that, I can get upgrade if available. I understand if it's available, so I just want to put it on their radar. And oftentimes, I've gotten responses saying, "Hey, it is," or I may have not gotten a response, but I'll get to the hotel and I'm in a way better room than I know I should be in. I'm like, great. And so that's a way for individuals to, like you say, kind of non-threatening ways to kind of go there and start getting into the habit of asking things. And if it doesn't work out, okay, because I know some people don't like the rejection. So I'm just sending an email. So if they never respond back, I don't necessarily feel that immediate
Yes.
rejection. So
Yeah,
yes,
I love it. That's a
yes,
great example.
that's
It's
great. That is awesome. Becca, I have appreciated this time that we've had here today. How can our listeners follow up with you, find more of the great tips that you give? And also, before we do that, there's one more thing I want to talk about. You said a 100-day challenge recently, right? What was that 100-day challenge about, and what caused you to kind of want to do that?
Yeah, it actually ties a lot to what we've been talking about, those like small steps.
Mhm,
The inspiration for it was that I wondered, okay, if I could break all these big goals into tiny steps. Like today, like one action item on that 100-day challenge was download your grocery store app and clip a coupon. Like it's not a
mm,
huge task, but it's something you might put off. And so the idea was like, how many tiny, tiny steps can I stack on top of each other to
mhm,
see real change?
mm,
And so it was really fun. It was hard at sometimes because some days you're like, I do not feel like doing this, but
mhm.
ultimately, yeah, it was like these small changes really do add up.
Yeah, they really do. I think that is a great concept that, what, at the end of the day, we have to show up. And just by doing something is, when you can't get to 100% without one. So
Yeah,
do
I like
do
that.
do something. You just got to do it. So make those
Yes.
little small iterative changes incrementally, and then the next thing you're going to look at where you were and be proud of where you are. So that's extremely
Yes.
important. So Becca, please, if you don't mind, our if our listeners, our audience would like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to follow you, whether it be social, on your website, things of that nature?
Yes. My business is called Money Beyond Math. So you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Money Beyond Math or head to our website, moneybeyondmath.com.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for your time, Becca. I would ask that you all go and show Becca some support. Also, if you have not subscribed to our channel, I'd ask that you would subscribe here to Everyday Money Heroes and follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. As we close out here, I want to thank you for your time. I am Nik Johnson, and I want to remind you to trust the process. Have a great day.